That was an enriching discussion on energy transition of mining land and thermal power plants. So keeping up with the momentum, we'd now be venturing into green transition of the industrial sector. And for that, we have with us as panelists, um, I'm inviting the panelists in the alphabetical order. So for this session, we have with us Mr. Anand Damle, Managing Director, De Boer Damle Private Limited, Ms. Anvesha Thakkar, Partner and Lead, Renewable Energy KPMG, Mr. Avinash Dhakne, Member Secretary, Maharashtra Pollution Control Board, Mr. D.P. Antapurkar, Director, Directorate of Steam Boiler, Mumbai, and the session is moderated by Mr. Sachin Kumar, Director, Industry Building and Cooling Programs, Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation. Before we start with the panel discussion, I'd like to invite Ms. Reshta Banerjee to set the context with a brief presentation.
So this session is focused on green transition of various industrial sector. And I'll give a very brief context setting presentation and then we'll be followed by the panel discussion. So the reason that factories and industrial sectors remain so important for Maharashtra because it is a backbone of the state's economy. And in the morning we heard that there are a large number of factories which are in operation. It is the third largest in India, nearly over 19,000. But what is more important is the growth trajectory that is envisioned for the manufacturing sector in the next 5 years in line with the state's $1 trillion economy target. And if we look at the figures which has been recently released, by end of around 2023 by the Maharashtra Economic Advisory Council, is that the manufacturing GVA will grow by nearly 3 times. And that is very interesting. From 64 billion in 2022, the target is to increase to 182 billion by 2028. And therefore, there will be a huge scale up of industrial activities. And that's why the question becomes that as Maharashtra scales up, how a green transition of the industrial sector can be realized. The reason that industrial sector remains important in the green transition question is because of 2 reasons. One is the emission and also the pollution. It has implications also for localized pollution. So it's not just GHG emission that we need a green industrial transition for. Industrial products and processes contribute to significant amount of the state's emission, about 6.4%, and the emissions have increased at a CAGR about 4.7% over the last 10 years. And now with the projected growth in the manufacturing sector, this is definitely going to grow much higher under a business as usual. Now, when we look at the transition landscape of the industries currently, these are the sectors the report has primarily focused on. There are many other sectors which are using industrial processes, but this largely covers most of it. So the sectors that we have looked into closely will be important for transition, looking at the scale of operation and their economic significance for the state are iron and steel, which has about 66 units, combining integrated steel plants and iron making units, with about 20 million metric ton per annum production capacity. There are cement plants, 18 units, out of which 6 are integrated plants, rest are grinding units with nearly 50 million ton per annum production capacity. Huge brick sector, which constitute a key part of the state's peri-urban and rural economy. There are nearly 17,000 brick units, producing about 28 billion bricks annually. So a huge component of the rural economy. You have the automobile sector, which I'll not touch in this session because we have kept a complete separate session post-lunch focused on it. Maharashtra is the biggest auto manufacturing hub in the country. And then we also have fertilizers, particularly we have looked into urea fertilizers. Given the GHG emission implications, there are 2 plants in Mumbai. And then finally, we have various industries which are using boilers, and there are nearly 6,000 boilers that are registered. So it's a large-scale industrial operation that we have looked into. Now, to very briefly, what are the key challenges now of transitioning this huge-scale industrial operation? Fundamentally, the first point is that still a large number of industrial sectors are using fossil fuel. We take it any industry, that is the case. So now how do we transition the fuel? That is one of the key questions. The second thing is technology, because energy efficiency and good technology use can help to reduce GHG emissions significantly as well as pollution. A key example remains the brick sector, and we have panelists today. But the sector in Maharashtra largely use clamp technology, which is a very old technology. And the alternatives are already viable in other parts of the country, such as in Bihar, where brick making is big. But this is a crucial challenge for Maharashtra. The third is the transition of MSMEs, particularly medium, small industries, which dominate many of these sectors. And today, Mr. Godrej mentioned it in the morning that it is going to be the most fundamental transition challenge for the industrial sector. How do you move the MSMEs? Because they do not have the resources, sometimes they do not have the capital and not the technology to do it. And it dominates the sectors such as auto component manufacturing, foundries, industrial units using boilers, among many others. And finally, the challenge is the workforce transition with the sectors, because there is a large amount of formal and informal dependence. In fact, manufacturing and construction sector are the two key sectors in Indian economy with the largest set of informality along the value chain. If we just look into the brick sector, the 0.25 million workers that is estimated to be in the state are mostly informal. So this is the scale of the transition challenge that we are talking about the industrial sector. But however, as we are focusing today on opportunities, what can be done and what are some of the early triggers that are in place for transitioning of this sector? Number one is that we need a change in fuel use, and the biggest talk is around green hydrogen today. The government of India has a policy, green hydrogen, green ammonia policy, but so has the state of Maharashtra. Therefore, there is a lot of opportunity in now scaling up green hydrogen. There is an NITI Aayog report which is saying that how green hydrogen can become cost competitive by 2030. The opportunity in Maharashtra is also about private sector investments that is already there in many of the sectors. For example, if we look at the steel industry, JSW Steel, JSPL, Tata Steel, all have announced plans to use green hydrogen for steel production in the last 2 to 3 years. These announcements are from big announcements. Industries are also talking about carbon capture, utilization and storage technology. Small investments are being made, but what again I'm saying, the large impetus is still coming from the private sector who are taking the lead, which now needs to be supported by necessary government policies. The second thing which will be important is change in material use and resource efficiency, because we are also talking of circularity in today's world. What will be important, two key sectors we have highlighted can be the construction, particularly in cement and brick, because there are talks ongoing, there are alternative materials being used. For cement, for example, proportion of clinker in cement can be reduced by substituting with alternative materials such as fly ash, metal slag, clay. Particularly, for example, brick kilns in Nagpur, they have access to a lot of fly ash. The government also has mandates to use these materials for brick making. So these can be leveraged at least to move ahead with the transition. Similarly, moving to alternative walling materials, AC blocks. So basically the building construction sector, how do we build, becomes also a key question as we talk about the green transition. Finally, one of the big opportunities is in technology change. And this is a leapfrog that is necessary for industries, particularly for boilers. There are a large number of industrial units that are using boilers in various capacities. And this is some figure we analyzed based on the latest boiler data, for which what fuel use has been monitored by the Directorate of Boilers, and the penetration of electricity is very, very low. In fact, it is less than 1%. There has been a shift to biomass in the last years, which is about over 50%. But what remains challenging is if we take coal, oil, diesel, natural gas all together, it still constitutes 45 to over 40% of boilers being relying on fossil fuel. So here is one of the things that is with boiler, and we are really hoping that electricity can be a solution for the future. The opportunity is also to transition small scale boilers to use electricity. And we have looked into the capacity of boilers in Maharashtra. About 70% of the boiler are having a capacity below 10 tons per hour. So here is an opportunity to move to green technologies. The other important sector can be, given the large dependence, is brick making, again a viable technology. For example, as I said, Maharashtra is using clamp, but a very simple opportunity is transitioning to vertical shift brick lanes or zigzag, which is existing in other parts of the country, such as the Indo-Gangetic plains. So these are very viable, cost-effective alternatives for the brick industry to transition to greener production processes. And finally, I'll stop with that there is important investments that is required in the greening MSMEs, because we said that they have less capital to move or resources. And the Maharashtra industrial policy is talking about greening the industrial sector, but there is not so much emphasis yet on MSMEs. And therefore, there can be some policy reform definitely will be necessary in the state industrial policy to provide the right policy lever apart from investments that is required from the private sector. I'll invite our panelists today for the day, very distinguished speakers. Mr. Anand Damle, who is the Managing Director of Tibor Damle India Private Limited. Welcome, sir. Ms. Anvesha Thakkar, Partner and Lead Renewable Energy, KPMG. Mr. Avinash Dhakne, who is the Member Secretary of Maharashtra Pollution Control Board. Welcome, sir. Mr. D.P. Antapurkar, who is the Director of the Directorate of Steam Boilers, Maharashtra. And last but not the least, our moderator for the day, Mr. Sachin Kumar, who is the Director of Industry Building and Cooling Programs at Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation. Thank you. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Shrestha. Thank you for setting the context. I think, Shrestha, you rightly mentioned that if India has to achieve its net zero target in future, the Maharashtra has to play a very critical role. And especially if I talk about, say, the industry sector, then we really need some clean solutions. Because if you talk about, say, other sectors of the economy which are highly emitting, for example, say the power, we have a pathway. So the country need to go, say, towards renewable energy. Similarly, we talk about other sectors which are highly emitting, for example, say the transport. We have a kind of a pathway that we can go towards electric vehicle. Or maybe for the long haul, we can go towards, say, hydrogen. But industry remains a very challenging sector because each subsector, I think Shrestha talked about steel, brick, cement, fertilizer. Each sector is unique and each sector has its own kind of challenges, own kind of solutions. But I think we are very lucky to have very eminent and very experienced panelists here. And without much ado, let me start with Mr. Avinash Dhakne. Sir, I think we have heard in the morning with the Principal Secretary, sir, also mentioned, and CB also mentioned about the Maharashtra is planning massive expansion in the manufacturing sector. But when the expansion happens in a manufacturing sector in any state or in any geography, the pollution and the related GHG emission will increase. That's part and parcel of it. So maybe, sir, we will be very grateful if you can throw some light on what government interventions will be required to ensure that the environmental pollution that will happen with the manufacturing sector expansion, that doesn't worsen the existing situation in the industrial areas.
Thank you very much, all the distinguished guests. I just seen the presentation by Shrestha, and he speaks a lot about it. What is there in the state of Maharashtra? As we all are aware, that we are the Maharashtra is the most industrialized state, and consequences are also similar. Whenever there is a development, it comes with cost. So we are bearing that cost of air and water pollution both. I mean, of late, the people have also realized the importance of better air quality to breathe. The best example is how it happened in Mumbai last 2 3 months. I've been constantly, well, not constantly, but almost daily, 2 to 3 times I have to monitor what is happening where and why is it happening. As rightly said, I mean, I will not name any company, but one company was using coal in Mumbai itself, in one of the suburbs. And the residents around, of course, company was there, is there for a long time, maybe 30 40 years. And the surrounding residential areas has come up now. Similar is the case with the public sector undertakings like RCEP and all that. But that particular company was using coal for a long time. And then after a complaint received from the residents, we have to get into action and had to advise the company to change the fuel. And this has been experienced in most of the cities worldwide. When I'm just talking about Mumbai now. Similarly, when we see the pollution levels of Delhi, and we all know the reasons. Solutions are there. It is not that solutions are not there, like what was talked about the CBG. So most of it is burnt, and I mean we are unable to get anything out of it except that we get more pollution. So government of Maharashtra is certainly working on it, and just 2 3 days before, only Central Pollution Board has also come up with some guidelines on particularly this parali burning and CBG. Also, whatever solutions we find, they have to be sustainable. When it comes to environment, of course, it is everywhere, but particularly environment and sustainability, these two words go simultaneously. So, sustainable solutions need to be find out. I mean, solar and wind, we all know. When time was there, and so many people say because of income tax depreciation and all that, it could get good on the ground. Uh, and now we all talk about electric vehicles, EVs. In two wheelers, there is a good adoption, but in four wheelers, in particular buses and four wheelers, I mean, forget about the cost and life cycle cost. I'm not to go into those details, but availability is a problem. So even if you have money, you have everything, you have a desire, but availability is not there. So transition becomes very difficult. I don't know the solutions for that because I'm not expert on industry as such. However, issues are there. I mean, even yesterday's budget or even Government of India's policy on coal gasification and green hydrogen. I mean, there are efforts from Government of India, Government of Maharashtra. Government of Maharashtra also has signed some MOUs about the green hydrogen just last week only. So, Maharashtra government is trying to move on along with the world, particularly when it comes to adoption of clean technologies. So there is also issue of price sensitivity, because when you talk about EVs, similar vehicle cost 15 lakhs, and normal ICE engine vehicle that costs 7 to 8 lakhs. You certainly think about EMIs, all the middle class who has a limited source of money. So there also needs a lot of research and development, particularly about portability. Then charging stations, it's still an issue. People are not much aware about how those vehicles will be serviced. All those kind of issues are there. So one good example which I thought is of LED bulbs. When LED bulbs were introduced earlier, the cost was much higher. There was resistance in adoption, even in government. Now it's much cheaper, it lasts longer, and because of research and development and because of the price sensitivity in the market, the adoption levels have increased. So when we talk of any kind of transition for that matter, sustainable solution is important, and then price of a particular thing is very important. Otherwise, such kind of solutions just remain on paper, and they don't uh, actually happen. When you talk about development, as I earlier also said, the use of electricity also increases. All kind, any kind of, whenever you put in more money into the into the pockets of people, then consumption of electricity increases. Like people say that when chocolate consumption is increased, then it is seen that country is progressing. That could be example of Western world, but certainly with the more money into the hands of people will increase the demand for electricity, because earlier days hardly any ACs you could see. Now everybody, almost anybody who can afford, he will have AC, he will have AC cars, he will have television, whatever mixer. Earlier days that used to be a very limited use. Now because of more number of people coming into the that bracket of middle class, and affordability has increased, so electricity consumption is going to increase, not just by industries but by the people, direct consumers as well. So we need to have better solutions which are affordable for the society. I think I will stop it here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think you rightly mentioned that the development comes with a cost. And sir, in terms of air pollution, I'm coming from Delhi. I know how difficult it is to breathe this period of time in Delhi. Building on this question, sir, maybe Mr. DP Antapurkarji, we know that in Maharashtra there are a large number of boilers, and these boilers are being used across different industries subsector, be it pharma, textile, industry, and still majority of them are using fossil fuel based operation. They are based on fossil fuel based operation, and there is very less penetration of electric boiler in the state of Maharashtra. So maybe you can throw some light on what are the opportunities for this boiler sector to transition to electricity.
Thank you, Shrestha and Sachin. But may I take this opportunity to introduce my department to the public? This is a 150 years old department. So boiler inspections started in India in 1869 when the Industrial Revolution took place. So from that time, boilers have been inspected. And in 1923, the Act came into force. So it is 101 years in 24. We are completing a century of formation of the Act. So we have, basically this department was formed for avoiding accidents to boilers. So complete from the birth of a boiler up to the end, everything is being monitored, everything is being looked into. And that is one of the main reasons why accidents in boilers in India, per se Maharashtra has reduced to less than 0.06%. So the accident part, I think the department has achieved its goal. Right from the manufacturing, from the steel plate that is used, which steel plate should be used, which steel plant should manufacture it, which walls are used. The welder who is involved in the welding is also tested, he is also certified. Then after the boiler is manufactured, it is registered at site, it comes with the complete document, it goes to the site, the boiler is registered, it is hydraulically tested, and a registration number is allocated to the boiler. The boiler operator who operates, or the boiler engineer who operates the boiler, is certified by us. We take a written exam of those engineers, and then we give them eligibility to take charge of the boiler. So manufacturing operation is governed. Then if a boiler is completing say 100 years, then we have the remnant life assessment of the boiler. There are boilers which are 100 years old. So, and if a boiler completes its life cycle, it has to be scrapped. The scrapping is also witnessed. The boiler is cut to pieces so that it is rendered non-usable then. So this is the total working of the department. You must have noticed that we don't we approve the design of the boiler. The drawings are submitted, we approve the design. But the designs are approved for the working pressure of the boiler, whether they will withstand that much pressure of the boiler. The efficiency part of the boiler or the fuel which is to be used in the boiler, that is the lookout of the manufacturer. So in Maharashtra, as Shrestha has told, there are about 5,988 boilers. Last year, 5,122 boilers were certified. They are in use now. So out of these, if you see, 20% are on coal. About 50 boilers are there, which are for utility, means for power generation. They use pulverized coal. Then 25% of the boilers use firewood. Biomass is used by 17%. Then gas, LDO and FO, about 24% of the boilers are using those. On waste heat recovery, we are having 4% boiler. And only 0.1% on solar. Electric boilers are there, but they are used for very low capacity steam generation. So for a sterilizer is not a boiler. A sterilizer generally works on electricity, but it is not a boiler. A boiler is defined as if the steam is being used outside to itself. So a pressure cooker doesn't become a boiler. So if the steam is being used outside to itself, then it is a boiler. If it is having, it is being heated to above 100 degrees centigrade, then it becomes a boiler. If it is operating above 1 kg, it becomes a boiler. So sterilizer is not a boiler. So in hotels, we are having some boilers, but if a hotel is having a bigger laundry, they require it for kitchen and laundry purpose, then still they are going in for gas waste. Boilers typically below 5 tons of steam generation can be converted into electricity. But then what is the cost of electricity that is going in? Whether the electricity is being generated on a green basis. So that has to be seen, and that is out of the ambit, though we are very much concerned about the pollution that boilers cause, but it is outside our ambit. But still, we are promoting solar-based power generation. Like in Shirdi, we are having solar-based steam generation for the cooking purpose. In Shegaon also, Chittois have put in 2 boilers where they are generating steam. But then it becomes, if a process is a continuous process, they require continuous steam, then it becomes difficult for the solar boilers to come in picture. But definitely there is a lot of chances for new entrepreneurs to come in, to have collaboration for solar as well as electricity to be used whenever solar illumination is available. Then we can go in for solar. And in the night time, with electricity, we can have instant steam generation. So definitely for small boilers, electricity can be an option, but it should be green electricity, not that electricity is generated in the power plant and then it is being used for, again, heating purpose. So that won't be a viable option. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for highlighting the importance of this sector, because we all understand without this department's intervention, there would have been more injuries or accident related to the boiler. So thank you very much for elaborating that, and also to highlight how we can integrate the solar aspect into the boiler operation in the state of Maharashtra. So coming to Anvesha, to you, so country has announced net zero commitment, and there are global drive towards net zero achievement by different sectors of the economy. And in India also, we are seeing that large corporates and the large industrial sectors, they are making their own plan for decarbonization process and to achieve net zero in future. So maybe can I request you to please share some of the emerging trends within the Indian industry sector? And if I can add, since a lot of industry sectors are MSME based, if you can touch some aspect related to MSME transition also, so that will be great. Anvesha.
Hello. Yeah, thank you for that question. So Okay, there's lots of interesting things that are happening in the industrial decarbonization space. However, it's not without its challenges. But upfront, what I would like to point out is that there are two distinct things. One is, of course, decarbonization because of various pressures, financial pressures, stakeholder pressures, all around, customer pressures, if you're looking at exporting particularly. But I see corporates seeing this as an opportunity as well to diversify their portfolio, to diversify their businesses. And that's why you will see a lot of completely unrelated industries now stepping into energy transition as a business. Whether it is cement companies, whether it's steel companies, textile companies, all of them are looking at what are the sustainable business opportunities which are high growth for future. And I see a lot of business houses diversifying into energy transition as a business. However, that's not the subject matter of the discussion. So I just wanted to make that point. I'll leave that aside. I'll come back to the first point, which is around decarbonization and what are the trends that we are seeing here. So if I roughly look at decarbonization, we are typically talking about the main animal being energy, and energy that contributes almost 80% to GHG emissions for almost all industries. So that becomes the lowest hanging fruit around which most corporates are designing their interventions. Having said that, the headline is that every industry has its own pathway towards decarbonization. There are a few common interventions, which is particularly around renewables procurement, because that's the lowest hanging fruit. Whether you take electricity from the grid or whether you take it from your own captive power plants, which are thermal based, that's the lowest hanging fruit, and it also brings economic savings. So that's one of the things that corporates have done first. Of course, now they're taking it to another level. They're trying to replace more and more of their electricity with RTC power, round the clock power, so that they can have a higher percentage of renewables being procured. Having said that, most of the other interventions are very industry specific. I'll start from the top. I mean, if I were to basically categorize interventions in three areas, which is reduction of the fuels that you use itself, whether for energy purposes or as feedstock. Second is substitute. When you're looking at substitution, for example, the renewable energy substitution for grid power. And third is reduction. Sorry, reduction I've already said, reuse, right? Reuse basically means the circularity, which itself becomes important when you are replacing the materials and, and other things, and looking at how much can you kind of, reuse over there as well as replace over there. Now, the first measure, which is reduction, we are seeing energy, efficiency measures. It's not new. It's been driven very strongly under Energy Conservation Act, and even in states is being driven by the pollution control boards, and we see energy efficiency measures being implemented. Of course, the question is, are we doing enough? I think the utilities side, which is basically the air, water, electricity that is being used by industries, that's been the lowest hanging fruit in terms of energy efficiency measures. But the core technologies efficiency is understandably so a little bit more difficult to implement, because there's a lot of sunk cost in the machinery that has already gone in. So to replace that with energy efficient equipment will take time, and there is also the funding element involved there. It's not been very successful, the whole funding model over there. So I think that needs to come in. So that's about a reduction. Substitution I've already covered. Of course, the electricity part, there is, of course, the whole boiler part, the heating part that has been discussed about enough. But particularly to your question on MSMEs, I think one solution that we've not talked about is district cooling or heating. Because I believe that when you're looking at clusters, okay, and a lot of MSMEs could be in cluster, we could look at providing centralized heating or cooling services, which will bring economies, and at the back of it, you can, bring in power through renewable energy, and therefore that can be a sustainable solution that should be looked at a government level when you are looking at, industrial decarbonization, and particularly for clusters. So that I feel we've not talked about. Now, on substitution of fuels, while we do talk about green hydrogen, and of course I've worked very closely in that sector with the Maharashtra government, one thing we need to bear in mind is that's also very sector specific. There is a phased substitution that is possible. Of course, refineries and fertilizers to begin with. But even in fertilizer, we need to be very careful because it's not so easy to substitute green hydrogen or ammonia, green ammonia and urea, because you need carbon to be added on top of it. And that carbon capture has a cost. So it's easier in some of the non-urea fertilizer segment than it is in urea. So that has to be enabled. Fertilizer, refineries, of course, yes. Steel, again, you need to look at the technology. Gas-based DRI, yes, you can blend hydrogen. Not so simple in coal-based DRI. We don't have the technologies for hydrogen use. Blast furnace, a little bit, yes. And hydrogen-based DRI is a bit far away. We are looking at probably the second part of next decade. So the point being that while we talk about hydrogen as a silver bullet, it's probably, you need to be very careful about which sectors we're talking about. Of course, I missed transportation. And the blending in the CNG. These are all immediate applications that you can look at. Carbon capture, I think, was already spoken about, so I won't talk about it, but that becomes the ultimate solution because all the technologies are not available today in most industries, which will lead to decarbonization. But carbon capture can add anything from $40 to $50, $40 to $60 per ton of carbon captured. So the question is who pays for it? So again, you're not easy. And last, I would like to touch upon, reuse, which is circularity. Again, a lot of potential there, but whether the scale can come in will really depend upon, again, government mandates, as well as the ecosystem creation for the generation of these substitutes, the distribution. Yesterday, we heard about, bio-based, industry being a big thrust. I was really, really, very happy to see that kind of a thrust coming in. If policy thrust is there, I think there is a huge possibility of substitution of materials with regenerative materials and bringing in regenerative practices. So yeah, this is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Anvesha. Thank you for highlighting that corporate is seeing this transition as an opportunity, and you have highlighted 4 to 5 important levers. Maybe on MSME we can have detailed discussion on district cooling and heating, because MSME, for me, they're a different ball game altogether. When we talk about, say, thermal energy or electrical energy, maybe we can have different discussion on that. Coming to you, Mr. Anand Damle, I know that you have been involved extensively with the brick sector for the last many years, not only in Maharashtra, in India, and also other South Asian countries. And I think Shrestha initially mentioned about brick being one of the major polluting sector in the state of Maharashtra, energy consuming, employment generating sector. So it's very important from the economy wide, not only for the Maharashtra, but maybe country as a whole. And Shrestha mentioned about the different clean brick manufacturing technologies which are being used, say, in the northern part of the country, in the Indo-Gangetic belt, where they are using, say, the zigzag kiln. But the Maharashtra being a very typical situation, because here we are talking about, say, the clam kilns, which are more energy inefficient. I can say they are more resource intensive. So maybe, sir, with your experience, if you can throw some light on what are the key interventions that can be done or that can be adopted in the state of Maharashtra for transitioning of the clam kilns to, say, the better or the clean technologies.
Thank you very much, Sachin. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, iForest, for inviting me for this session. I am working in this sector, brick sector, clay brick sector, for last 40 years. And I have worked extensively within the country and outside also. Before answering the question as to what are the interventions that could be there, I would like to give you a brief picture of the sector in the country. Brick is possibly the first industry in the history of mankind, and it started about 5,000 years ago, because the first ever fired brick which was made in the country or in the world, it has been found that it was produced in Kalibangan in Rajasthan, and it is already kept in a museum in US. It is carbon dated 3000 BC. So already it is a 5,000-year-old industry. During these 5,000 years, the world has progressed a lot on all fronts, whereas the industry has more or less remained at the same level. It has not progressed with time. Typically, if we see India, India has, say, with respect to this industry, can be divided in 5 different regions. The Indo-Gangetic belt, which starts from Punjab and ends in Tripura, that produces majority of the bricks in the country. It contributes to 66% of the total production, but the number of units are 33%. So a 2/3, 1/3 rule applies to this industry as against the normal 80-20 rule in other industries. So 2/3 of the production is done by 1/3 of the number of units. Whereas in the peninsular India, and Maharashtra is very much a part of the peninsular India, we are contributing to around 1/3 of the production, but we have more number of units. 2/3 of the units are in the peninsular India. Then there is a Malabar region which starts at the, say, southmost tip of Goa and extends up to Kerala. There, the roof tile production, which started somewhere in 1865, more than 150 years now, there the technology at one time was the most advanced technology for manufacture of roof tile. Advanced meaning it was mechanized. It was not automated, but it was mechanized. And all kinds of machinery was being used in clay preparation, in shaping, in drying, firing, and material handling. But in Maharashtra, typically, the technology has remained where it started. It is clamp based, and clamp is possibly the crudest way of firing bricks, and that is where it started 5,000 years ago. And a common man will ask, why so? Because Maharashtra is such a progressive state, why the brickmaking has not really, it is not catching up with time. Because there are 3 main factors which affect the choice of technology in a region. One is the availability of clay or the nature of the clay available. Secondly, the climate of that region. And thirdly, the market practice, building practice. In Maharashtra, there is a song, Maharashtra Geet, which says that Maharashtra Desha Khadkancha Desha. So basically, we are a land of rocks. We are sitting on the Deccan Plateau, which is basalt. So we have no availability of large-scale clay or silt. Indo-Gangetic belt is full of silt. And it was actually created by the Ganges and its tributaries, which flew down Himalayas and deposited all the silt in the Indo-Gangetic belt. So availability of raw material is plentiful. Whereas in Maharashtra, the availability of raw material is very less, scarce. So the industry in Maharashtra is all scattered and small scale. Whereas in the Indo-Gangetic belt, the industry is concentrated and large scale. So whatever technology suits this condition of scattered and small scale production is adopted by the local people. So clamp is the technology which is suited to the scattered and small scale production. And bull trench kiln or fixed chimney bull trench kiln or the zigzag kiln is the technology which is suited to the large scale concentrated production. Whereas in the Malabar belt, it is Hoffman kiln, which basically is a technology which came from Germany, because the first extruder in that region also was imported by a German, George Plebo, in 1865, and that extruder came along with this kiln. So the kilns in the Malabar belt, the adoption was of that Hoffman kiln. And this Hoffman kiln is a continuous kiln, and it was patented by an Austrian in Germany in 1876 or something. And the bull's trench kiln or the chimney kiln, which is actually now progressing into zigzag kiln, which is made mandatory by the government. Actually, the name Bull is a name of a person in the Indian Army called Colonel Bull, and he developed this option for the Indo-Gangetic belt. So this technology is being used for large-scale production in India and other countries neighboring India, like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. So all these countries are using the Bull trench kiln technology. Now I will just come to a question of what is the production of bricks. The first ever study in India was made in the year 2000, and that study was done under a UNDP project, and counting the number of brick manufacturers is like counting sparrows sitting on a tree. By the time you start counting, some of the sparrows are gone and some new sparrows have settled. So it is very difficult, especially in case of clamps, to really have an estimate. So there are different methodologies by which you can have some intelligent guesses. And one such methodology I had developed in 2000 here, and now that is being used quite often by most of the people who are involved in this job. And that is a consumption factor method. So by this method, normally I have done some study for Maharashtra. Maharashtra has, because the report of IFRS says that around 17,000 units, 17,000. So my guess is around 20 to 22,000 units, slightly more. And around 25 billion bricks are made in Maharashtra. That more or less is maybe could be, they are saying 28 billion, but okay, in the range of 25 to 30 billion bricks being made in the state. Since majority of the brick making in Maharashtra happens through clamps, there are only about 70 to 100 bull trench kilns, and that too mainly in Nagpur area, in Vidarbha. So the intervention needed for both these options are different. For clamps, the same intervention will not be applicable. So I will never say that the clamp people should shift to zigzag kiln. It is not possible. The clamp is there because it is a small scale operation and it is a scattered operation. Zigzag kiln can never become relevant for a person who is adopting a clamp. So for clamps, I was looking for what could be done for clamps. And in South Africa also, if you study this technology in the world, in South Africa, all the operations till the firing stage are done with the most sophisticated technology in the world, with a lot of automation, robotics, etc. But the firing is done with clamps, because the clamp gives variation in texture and color, which is valued in South Africa, in most of the countries where brick is used as a facing material. You need a variation in color and texture. So that is why clamps are being used there. And there, very recently, an intervention was done in South Africa, in Pretoria, and it was actually with the Clay Brick Association of that country, which was funded again by SDC, Swiss Development Cooperation. And that experiment was quite successful, and they covered the clamp and it was fitted with a fan and a chimney, and all the effluents, emissions which were going in the air were collected in one place, and they could monitor the clamp, and it turned out that the emissions were quite less. So maybe in Maharashtra, we can learn from their experience and develop a green clamp. So clamp cannot move to VSBK or the zigzag kiln. We have to provide a solution which is practical, which they can adopt. Is a green clamp. So, but some development or adoption is necessary here. And of course, the kilns in the Nagpur area, around 70 to 100. Recently, a study was done and the energy monitoring, environment monitoring was done. And the Bureau of Energy Efficiency has come out with a scheme called E3 scheme, and they have put a kind of a limit as to what should be the consumption of, say, energy threshold, what should be the there. And most of the kilns which are working in Nagpur area are below that threshold. So already they are green. I mean, with respect to the E3 scheme, I am saying. So there is no incentive for those people to go for conversion to zigzag, because why? We are already working within that threshold, so why we should convert? So, but of course on the emission side, maybe something is required to be done, not on the energy side, but since today's topic is energy transition, so with respect to energy, at least they are saying, and they are right, that they need not do anything. They are already within the limit. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anandji. Thank you so much for highlighting the evolution of the brick industry in India. And I do agree with you that for the clamp kilns, at least which are the smaller production capacity clamp, maybe the zigzag is not an option as a clean technology option for them.
Or even VSBK is not an option. 100%. I am more than convinced.
I think both of us were involved in that project
Yes.
where VSBK was commissioned in India. So maybe we can discuss that later on, sir.
Yeah.
Avinashji, coming back to you again, very quickly, sir, since you are heading the department on environment and you are very closely associated with the industry sector in the state of Maharashtra. And when we talk about, say, the energy transition in the industry sector, so sir, from your perspective, which are the important industry subsectors which have the more opportunity to move towards the cleaner technology, maybe say next to 5 to 10 years? And sir, may I request all the panelists now that to respond maybe 2 to 3 minutes only. We have less time now.
I think the experts have already said about it. Wherever, from environment perspective, wherever there is a chance of more air pollution, there we'll focus more. Say like for these coal-fired plants. That's the, for us, I can't say it publicly, but there's a major concern for any of the pollution control board. Similarly about cement. So steel, cement, sponge iron. And these particular units are located in particular areas like Chandrapur, Yavatmal, Gadchiroli, more steel plants are coming. So what is happening is, the people in that area, they have to suffer from pollution, and people in Mumbai, Pune and Nasik area, industrial development is more. So all the employment or development is happening here at the cost of causing pollution there. So that is basically our focus. Another thing is, moving to the cleaner energy solutions. That is, of course, focus of Government of Maharashtra. So I think whenever there is a transition, you need government interventions. So without government interventions, it is not possible. And another thing, what Mr. Damle has just said, I fully agree with you, because you cannot apply European or American standards, or something happened somewhere, you just, okay, that is good technology, just ask our people to adapt it. It is not possible, because, local situation is different. Then people's mindset is equally important. Then people who are, who are employed in the sector, they are also equally important. It is not that when some technology is developed somewhere and just get the technology and just push it through some legislation or that. That kind of change never happens actually. So we have to consider all those things in order to have better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think you rightly mentioned that the transition in any sector that needs government intervention, especially when it has to happen in a sector like industry. And I fully agree with you, sir, that we need not copy whatever the European intervention is there, because we have our own set of priorities, our own set of geography and economy. Coming to you, Mr. DP Antapurkar sir, I think Anvesha mentioned about the clusters and the use of boilers in the MSME also. Can you throw some light on the cluster in the state of Maharashtra and the efficiency aspect of boiler in that clusters?
Yeah, as Avnisha had mentioned, that if clusters are coming up, like we are having 200 boilers in Bhiwandi, the same number of boilers in Malegaon, and Ichalkaranji, yes. So these sparrows are sitting, sir. Our sparrows are sitting, they don't fly away. So these boilers are stationed in every house. Every house is having a boiler, you can say. If a cluster is coming up there, we can have a boiler which can cater, the steam requirement is very less. A single sizing unit will require not more than 5 tons of steam. But they have to have their own boiler because the industry, how it is working, it is up to them. So they require individual boilers. So clusters are not coming up there. But if government is following up that, then we can have a cluster wherein a number of sizing units can be placed in one hub, and it can have a bigger boiler. We can have a power generation to that. We can go in for agro waste fired boiler for that also. So if a cluster comes, then definitely that can be very useful to such clusters like Ichalkaranji, Bhiwandi area. Another thing was efficiency part. Efficiency part is not in R, but on the completion of 75 years of independence, we took it as a target to improve efficiency of 75 boilers. So that was one of the targets that we took. And then we studied a cluster of boilers in Tarapur area. So in Tarapur area, many people don't even have the simple steam flow meters. So we selected those industries who are having steam flow meter and a measure of the fuel that they are using. So these 75 boilers, when we analyzed, the boilers efficiency was, the manufacturer claims the efficiency to be more than 90%, but these boilers are operating at efficiencies not more than 60%, many of the boilers. So there is quite a lot of opportunities for, one more thing is that we do energy audit for 13 sectors, I suppose, which are consuming more than 3,000 tons of oil equivalent. But for the smaller industries, there is no such compulsion or there is no such scheme for which energy audit can be done. If the government comes up with such scheme that if energy audit is done for smaller boilers, then I think there is quite a lot of opportunity. But when an energy audit has to be done, then small investment by the owner for steam measurement and for the fuel measurement, that will have to be done. It can be subsidized. Like I was hearing to, sir was telling, if MPCB is continuously monitoring stack emissions, they get the feedback from them. So, but I think there is some subsidy given to the user for installing that instrument. Similarly, if government comes up with some scheme wherein subsidy can be given to install the steam flow meter, and then I think definitely efficiency can be increased to 2 to 3% for each and every boiler. Thank you, Sachin.
Thank you, sir. I think just to add to what you mentioned, sir, about the schemes or the incentive by the government, there was a scheme by the Ministry of MSME where some incentive, upfront subsidy was given for the installation of efficient equipment. I think that was called Credit Linked Capital Subsidy Scheme. I'm not sure whether that is still operational or not. Similarly, they had another scheme where they were giving support, financial support for energy audit in the clusters. So just to add to what you had mentioned. Coming to you, Anvesha, I think you talked about the different trends with the corporate sector in the country for decarbonization. But when we talk about the decarbonization, it will need investment. So can you please throw some light on how Maharashtra can prioritize the investment in the decarbonization process?
So I think prioritization is obviously we have to start with the heavy emitting sectors, and that have to be the key focus because I mean nobody has that kind of money, and you need to go for the highest impact areas. I would really recommend whoever has not read. I love the report. I mean I've not read the full report. I read the excerpt, and I think it was a fairly comprehensive report by our forest. But some of the things, if I would say that is required to enable the investments is a bigger thing over there that the government has to focus on. And I would broadly categorize into three heads: supply side measures, demand side measures, and enablers. Supply side measures, how can you bring in technologies, promote technologies like renewable hydrogen, which I think the government is doing quite a lot, honestly. I mean, the green hydrogen policy is one of the most, I would say, progressive policies over there. We're looking at pumped storage coming in, which is extremely important to provide that stable power, to stable green dispatchable power to industries, because it's not enough just to provide renewable and many other measures, the feeder level solarization that's happening and so many other things. So I think in terms of supply side, there is a lot of focus. Demand, central level, there is of course focus that's percolating down, but I think more industry level mandates which can come in to make the emission norms more stringent and also follow it through would be extremely important. So the mandates over there will be extremely important to create the demand, because investors finally look at how do you de-risk yourself, and supply side, demand side, both are important. And then the enabling infrastructure, whether that is land, whether that is transmission, whether that is water, whether that is roads, the enabling infrastructure has to be there. Skill building has to be there. Capacities, it's extremely important. It's an opportunity as well, right? Because we need to transition the workforce that is there in some of the traditional sectors and help them, get integrated in the sunrise sector. So the reskilling, upskilling, all of these are extremely important. And in fact, we've been working at the center, looking at how skilling can be improved in the areas of energy transition, and that needs to be definitely, looked at state level. Financing, how do you increase the financing flows? By creating the funds and, through public-private partnership, which is specifically targeted towards decarbonization. I think that would be extremely important. And of course, something that the report also pointed out, which I really liked, is looking at it regionally. What are the regions that are going to be most affected because they have a big concentration of these polluting industries, and how, that region's economic upliftment can be looked at, very comprehensively by providing them alternative generation opportunities, looking at cluster-based, opportunities. All of these things I think would be really relevant. So in the interest of time, I'll just stop here. Yeah.
Thank you, Anvesh. Thank you for very comprehensively detailing out the levers that are required for investment also. Coming to you, Anandji, I think when we talk about the transition of any sector, but especially for the brick sector, where a lot of informal workers are involved in the operation and other parts of the brick manufacturing process in the state. So in your view, sir, what are the key interventions that are required, say, for the workers' perspective, if they have to go for the transition in the sector?
Firstly, we need to do the technology transition, and for clamps, as I said, the only possible solution would be a green clamp which is covered from all sides and with a chimney and with a fan. So it will be less polluting, also more efficient. So this technology needs to be developed, and then strategy needs to be formulated by the state so that it can be disseminated to all or made compulsory at one point of time. For the laborers, mainly the training which is necessary. We need to build their capacity, because if the technology is changing, then they need to be trained so that they can run that technology, that new technology. Also, world over, this industry is progressing in the direction of hollow perforated products, lightweight products, large format products. So our industry also needs to progress in the same direction. So we are only talking of firing part now, but also making and the size and shape of the brick. Also, we need to make it more lighter. We need to make it larger as a format. Also, we need to have maybe perforations and hollows so that the insulation part will be taken care of. And once those technologies come, one needs a lot of investment in the sector. And for investing more, we need to increase the profitability of this enterprise. It has a very limited profitability. So we need to increase the profitability by several interventions. It is several ways it is possible, but we can do it because average, I will just tell you, in India, a normal brick, a clay brick, fired clay brick is sold at, say, anywhere between 4 rupees to, say, around 10 rupees per brick, ex kil. Transportation, everything adds to it, or maybe now the GST also has come. But there are also bricks which are sold at 25 rupees to 100 rupees one brick. Whether people can shift to those kinds of bricks, because we have already given 2 turnkey projects for 100% export-oriented units. But of course, that will require a lot of capital, a lot of investment, and the clamp people will not be able to manage that. So intervention firstly needed is the technology intervention. Then we need to train the workforce to operate that technology and make best use of that technology.
Thank you, Anandji. I think you rightly mentioned that we need the capacity building of workers. And it is true for any other sector as well. And just to add to what you mentioned about the design of the clamp kiln, I think under one of the initiative by Central Pollution Control Board, they had prepared the design for the clamp kiln, but somehow that has not been disseminated across. So in the interest of the time, I'm not going to open the floor for the question to the panelists, but maybe you can ask the question one-to-one during the lunch break. And let me thank all the panelists for giving the very comprehensive and the detailed responses to all the important issues that are required for the transition aspect for the industry sector in the state of Maharashtra. Thank you very much.
You want a group photo? Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'll go.